These women are completely out of touch with reality. And you're right, ABC should wake up.
It started like any other episode of The View, with the usual banter and predictable talking points. Then Karoline Leavitt stepped onto the scene, and everything changed. For years, this daytime talk show has enjoyed a monopoly on its own version of reality. Critics have called it a safe haven for one-sided commentary, wrapped in the veneer of women's empowerment. But on this day, viewers witnessed something far more dramatic, a moment that signaled a colossal shift in how mainstream media gets challenged. This isn't your average television spat. It's a showdown that put powerful media figures on the defensive and shined a glaring spotlight on their methods. By the time Karoline finished speaking, jaws dropped, tempers flared, and The View stumbled into a crisis of credibility that no one saw coming. If you've ever wondered what happens when legacy media gets called out on its own stage, buckle up. Because this showdown is setting a precedent that could reshape the media landscape for years to come. Joy Behar prides herself on championing women's empowerment. She spent years delivering moral lectures, scolding public figures for failing women, and touting herself as a feminist icon. So when Karoline Leavitt emerged as a new voice in the political sphere, an accomplished White House press secretary at just 27, you'd think Joy would celebrate that achievement. Instead, she did the exact opposite. Rather than acknowledging Karoline's accomplishments or her rapid rise, Joy snidely reduced her to physical attributes. The undertone was clear. There's no way Karoline could have earned her position through hard work or intellect. She must have been chosen for superficial reasons. This hit a nerve for many viewers who spotted the hypocrisy. How can a woman who constantly preaches about defending other women stoop to belittling a younger female peer using the very tactics she claims to despise? Karoline didn't let it slide. With a calm, clear voice, she refused to back down. She pointed out the absurdity of Joy's comment, reminding her that attacking someone's looks is the oldest trick in the book, and one that any genuine feminist should find repulsive. The tension escalated in seconds, and you could practically feel the energy shift on set. Suddenly, the proud feminists on The View had to defend a petty, sexist remark. And that was just the beginning. Sensing the danger of Joy's blunder, Whoopi Goldberg stepped in, trying to steer the conversation in a safer direction. She accused Karoline of lacking empathy, painting her as someone who's simply too harsh to understand what real tolerance means. Then she dropped her favorite buzzword, wokeness. Whoopi tried to tie wokeness to everything from civil rights struggles to women's suffrage. In her narrative, Karoline's criticism of wokeness amounted to an attack on basic human decency. Yet Karoline didn't fold. She calmly separated the idea of civil rights, a historical movement aimed at ensuring fundamental equality, from the modern usage of wokeness, which sometimes devolves into little more than virtue signaling or identity politics. And here's where it got interesting. By conflating the two, Whoopi either came off as misunderstanding the concept or deliberately misleading viewers. She insisted that without wokeness, people like Karoline wouldn't even be at the White House podium. Karoline, however, pointed out that her presence had nothing to do with identity-based handouts. She got there on her own merits. If Whoopi had hoped to pivot the conversation away from Joy's slip-up, the plan backfired. Karoline's response left the audience wondering why The View hosts were so desperate to defend a concept they couldn't even define properly. If you thought the morning's drama peaked with personal attacks, think again. The conversation shifted to an entirely different bombshell, one involving Elon Musk. The hosts of The View floated a wild narrative about an alleged assassination attempt tied to Musk's controversies. They presented it as if it were established fact, stoking fear and speculation in the studio. Then Karoline stepped in. Her eyebrows may have arched slightly, but her calm tone never wavered. She questioned the source of these claims and highlighted how quickly the show jumped to sensational conclusions without clear evidence. Her exact point: how can you demand accountability from others, especially from a billionaire like Elon Musk, while spreading rumors this incendiary on national TV? The set fell silent. Suddenly, the burden of proof shifted onto the hosts, who struggled to cite any credible source. Even worse, it exposed a glaring double standard. The View's panel has often labeled others, particularly conservatives, as conspiracy theorists. Yet here they were amplifying a narrative that, by their own standards, sounded more like a tabloid rumor. Karoline didn't gloat. She didn't need to. The silence and frantic backtracking from the host said it all. The awkward silence led to a broader question. Why do shows like The View feel entitled to push dubious stories without repercussions? Karoline seized the moment to talk about the unchecked power of legacy media. She pointed out that for years, mainstream outlets like CNN, MSNBC, and even daytime talk shows have enjoyed near-total freedom to shape public opinion as they see fit. Often they do so with little to no accountability. Karoline explained that the White House is done ignoring slanted reporting. She announced a zero-tolerance stance on blatant misinformation targeting the administration, exposing how irresponsible narratives have the power to mislead millions of viewers. The reaction from The View's panel was a mix of disbelief and panic. They've grown so accustomed to controlling the conversation that the thought of being held accountable felt like an affront to their authority. And accountability has a way of jolting people awake. By this point, everyone in the studio and the millions watching realized that The View was losing ground. The usual smears and flippant remarks no longer worked. A younger, prepared, and unapologetically direct new press secretary was here, calling them out on their tactics. This wasn't just a clash of personalities. It felt like the downfall of an entire playbook. Then came Karoline's big reveal. She was spearheading a major transformation in the White House press briefing room. No longer would only the usual elite outlets occupy front-row seats. In a move that stunned the old guard, Karoline announced the creation of a new media section, opening the doors to journalists from alternative outlets, online platforms, and channels that speak to an audience the legacy media ignores. As if on cue, the View panel unleashed a torrent of protest. Sunny Hostin sneered at the idea of unqualified new media reporters stepping foot in the White House. Whoopi then launched into a monologue about how letting anyone but the recognized mainstream near the front row is dangerous because they'll just spout stuff. It's a stunning statement, given that mainstream media has also been guilty of spouting stuff for years, like that Elon Musk accusation minutes earlier. Karoline didn't even break a sweat. She clarified that these new media outlets would still undergo the same security checks and credentialing as everyone else. The difference is that they'd actually challenge narratives on both sides of the aisle. For a moment, the hosts seemed speechless. Then it hit them. The View's influence, and by extension, that of legacy media, was under real threat. No wonder they were scrambling to dismiss this initiative as reckless. In reality, it was the biggest shakeup of White House press protocol in recent memory. Cornered by Karoline's barrage of well-documented points, the hosts tried a classic tactic, the immigration gotcha. They demanded detailed data on IC arrests, hoping to frame Trump's policies as draconian. But Karoline didn't blink. She calmly stated that every individual who enters the country illegally is, by definition, breaking the law. She reminded them that she and the administration distinguish between lawful immigrants who follow legal processes and those who cross the border in violation of U.S. law. A hush fell over the set as the simple logic sank in. This was not a radical viewpoint, it was the legal baseline for sovereignty. Yet The View had tried to spin it as heartless or extreme. Karoline even took a moment to remind viewers that the administration welcomes legal immigration but remains firm against unchecked crossings. By flipping the question back on them, she exposed how out of touch the show's hosts seemed. If they wanted to appear as defenders of immigrants' rights, they first had to grapple with the fact that laws exist for a reason, and that not everyone who breaks them deserves a free pass. Their attempts to paint Karoline as cruel fizzled fast. She didn't rant, rave, or show anger. She presented information methodically, reminding everyone that she wasn't the nasty woman they'd tried to portray. She was simply a young professional committed to upholding the law. By now, the View panel looked visibly rattled. Rarely do they lose control of their own set. Karoline had done more than just hold her ground. She'd flipped the power dynamic. This spectacle illustrated how someone outside the media's inner circle could systematically dismantle their arguments, live and in prime time. Karoline's biggest triumph? She delivered a wake-up call to everyday viewers who might have taken mainstream narratives at face value. By consistently exposing double standards, Joy's shallow attack, Whoopi's misguided wokeness sermon, and the baseless Elon Musk rumor, Karoline showed the public how half-truths and spin can be debunked through calm, fact-based rebuttals. Beyond the show's meltdown, this moment hints at broader fractures in the alliance between the Democratic establishment and their media allies. For years, they've operated almost in sync. Yet the rise of new voices, both in government and across social platforms, means that traditional gatekeepers can no longer hide behind their usual tactics. They face real competition for credibility. And the tension we saw on The View is just one example of the meltdown that ensues when a carefully maintained narrative starts to crumble. This wasn't just a bad day on daytime television. It was a signal that the mainstream media's grip on public opinion is slipping. Karoline Leavitt's confrontation with The View unleashed more than just a flurry of online debates. It opened the floodgates for a new conversation on accountability, transparency, and fairness in media coverage. Where does this leave The View? They can adapt, meaning they'd own their mistakes, invite actual debate, and stop dismissing voices outside their echo chamber. Or they can cling to the old model, doubling down on tired narratives that fewer and fewer people are buying. One path leads to a genuine renewal of relevance, the other to obsolescence. As for Karoline, she's proven that an articulate, prepared voice can spark a revolution against even the most entrenched media personalities. Viewers have started looking for facts beyond the usual headlines, and the shift toward alternative platforms is growing by the day. That might terrify some, but for those eager for balanced discourse, it's a breath of fresh air. So, what do you think? Are we witnessing the twilight of mainstream media's dominance? Or will outlets like The View find some new trick to keep their influence alive? Share your thoughts, stay vigilant, and remember, there's always more happening beneath the surface of any headline. If you found this breakdown eye-opening, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and tap the notification bell. Because trust me, this fight for transparency, honesty, and real accountability is far from over. And you won't want to miss what's coming next.